George Miller. Made by Davidova Tatiana, first-year master's student, Faculty of Foreign Languages, Tashkent State Pedagogical University named after Nizami. George Miller was an American psychologist who was one of the founders of cognitive psychology and more broadly of cognitive science. He also contributed to the birth of psycholinguistics. Miller wrote several books and directed the development of WordNet, an online word linkage database usable by computer programs. He authored the paper The Magical Number 7 plus or minus 2, in which he observed that many different experimental findings considered together reveal the presence of an average limit of 7 for human short-term memory capacity. The magical number 7 plus or minus 2 some limits on our capacity for processing information is one of the most highly cited papers in psychology. George Armitage Miller experiment. The magical number 7 experiment purports that the number of objects an average human can hold in working memory is 7 plus minus 2. What this means is that the human memory capacity typically includes strings of words or concepts ranging from 5 to 9. This information on the limits to the capacity for processing information became one of the most highly cited papers in psychology. The magical number 7 experiment was published in 1956 by cognitive psychologist George Armitage Miller of Princeton University's Department of Psychology in Psychological Review. In the article, Miller discussed a concurrence between the limits of one-dimensional absolute judgment and the limits of short-term memory. In a one-dimensional absolute judgment task, a person is presented with a number of stimuli that vary on the dimension, such as 10 different tones varying only in pitch, and responds to each stimuli lies with a corresponding response learned before. Performance is almost perfect up to 5 or 6 different stimuli but declines as the number of different stimuli are increased. Miller's law. The average person can only keep 7 plus or minus 2 items in their working memory. Person is exposed to numerous bits of information when completing a task. For example, they are shown words on a piece of paper. Information is stored temporarily in the prefrontal cortex for 10-15 seconds. The number of bits one can hold in their working memory is 5-9 items. This is a universal law and limitation observed in many studies. In conclusion, we can say that Miller's law teaches us that humans have a finite amount of information they can process, and that information overload will lead to distraction that negatively affects performance.